Thanks to all of you for being here tonight and for giving me just a moment to say hello, to welcome you, and to put in a plug for the program that Dana has mentioned and for which she serves as the coordinator. It's the Liberal Arts Bridge Program, or LAB for short. It's a program that's specifically designed to support career exploration and professional development for students who are majors in the School of Liberal Arts. We know that liberal arts graduates go on to do amazing things, to live successful lives, to be very likely to find a great deal of fulfillment and reward and success and leadership in their future professional lives. But often it takes them a little longer to figure out what exactly they want to do after graduation because they have so many options and so many interests. LAB is designed to help students explore and prepare and find opportunities in just that way. And the alumni career panels that we sponsor with Career and Professional Development Services, sponsored by the LAB program, are one way that we do that. Another way that we do that is through supporting internship placement and opportunity for liberal arts majors. And as a part of that, we recognize that many internships, including those in the public sector and with nonprofit organizations, are often unpaid or underpaid. And we know that for many students, that's simply not an option. So if you are a major in the School of Liberal Arts, and if you secure an internship with a nonprofit employer or a public sector employer that is unpaid or underpaid, and you have demonstrated unmet financial need, you are eligible to apply for a LAB internship scholarship. The LAB scholarships are supported generously by our alumni and donors, and you can earn up to $5,000 for a full-time summer internship. And so I encourage you to apply. The LAB application is open now, and we'll consider applications on a rolling basis. For summer internships, they can be in person, they can be remote, and we now also consider funding part-time internships during the academic school year. So if you haven't got an internship lined up for the summer and are interested in working in a nonprofit, in the governor's office, in a public sector organization or office, then consider looking into the LAB scholarship program. So thanks for letting me give that quick plug. I'm delighted with our panel tonight. This is our second panel that we've done in the last couple of years on careers in law and justice. And our first focus specifically on women in law and justice, which is very appropriate for Women's History Month, which actually we've just passed, but also for the year in which we're celebrating 50 years of women's admission to St. Mary's College. So it's kind of a big deal. I'm thrilled with our panelists. I'm going to turn it over to our facilitator and speaker, Fatima Silva, one of our amazing alumni, and let her introduce the panel and the panelists and take it away. So thanks again, and I'll hand it off to you, Fatima.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Hughes and the Liberal Arts Bridge Program. It's an honor to be speaking to students and the St. Mary's community tonight. We do have an awesome panel of women I'm really excited about. And so I'm going, we'll get a chance to hear from each of them and hear how, St. Mary's prepared their path for where they are today. I think a lot of you on here, if you are students, you're probably looking for, hopefully interested in some kind of justice, law, policy work, something of that nature, or you're just, curious about it. You're not sure what you want to do, and you want to see if the steps that you're taking right now can lead you in that direction. And hopefully some of our panelists can give more insight on things that they did at St. Mary's that helped them direct their path to where they are today. Once again, my name is Fatima Silva. So I graduated in 2004, which doesn't feel that long ago, but my goodness, it's been a while. And one of my fellow panelists here, Evonne Silva, was not only my roommate back in college, a dear friend. We actually are not related, but we met through our last names, and both living in Justin Hall freshman year. So I am an attorney. My main practice area is criminal defense, and I'd say about almost 4 years ago, I actually had the opportunity to appear on a true crime television show. So we are now in our 4th season. We just finished it. It will be premiering soon. It's on Investigation Discovery, which is Discovery Channel's all crime network. So if you're into true crime, you know, that it's like Forensic Files and all of that stuff, it's definitely that kind of channel. There's some cheesy stuff on there, but there's also some really great justice programs. Ours is a true crime documentary. So basically, I have the opportunity to look into cases where families believe that their loved one was wrongfully accused of murder. It's an opportunity that I could not pass up. It's you know, exhausting work. We travel across the country for about 6 months, 2 weeks a month, meeting these families all over the country and looking into cases to see if there's a wrongful conviction. During my time at St. Mary's, if somebody had asked me, do you think you'll be on a true crime show one day? I'd say, no, that's really awesome. I wish, but I wouldn't even know the path to take because my path was pretty clear. It was politics and then law school and then become a lawyer. So I wish I could say that, you know, the way that I got the opportunity, such as a TV show, was I did this and this and this. But to be honest, it just kind of stumbled on my lap, and I got a call one day and somebody else had recommended me for it. So, you know, that's not to say that being who you are and following your heart and your passion isn't going to lead to other doors opening. You definitely want to take opportunities as they come. But I also think that there's just some things you can't plan out. And I know that's really difficult for you who are still students right now. You know, when I was in college, that's how I was. I had a clear plan. I had a path. And if, you know, something just didn't fit in that, I wasn't going to go that route. It just wasn't part of the plan. But you'll find that's not how life works. So as you continue through college, past college, excuse me, you're going to get a lot of curveballs thrown at you. And you just kind of you realize through life, you got to go with the flow, and you got to follow your heart. And sometimes you got to take these risks. And those of us who are in law, I feel like, who do the whole politics and then pre-law and all of that, if that's any of you, you probably all know you're not huge risk takers. That's not us. We're like type A, we plan it out, you know, we're hard workers. And, you know, we study hard and then we expect results. And life isn't really going to happen that way. So I think this panel hopefully will help you see that just be open to things. You may not even want to be a lawyer, but you're interested in policy work or foundational work. And, you know, we have some panelists here who can talk more about that. Sorry, I'm going to have water right now. I am really excited that we're celebrating 50 years of women at St. Mary's. I didn't realize that. And for some reason, that number just doesn't seem like that long ago. 50 years, you know, 50 years ago, women were finally admitted to St. Mary's. And now, if any of you guys know, women are majority in college now. The numbers are close, but women are majority, and that's really exciting. More women are being educated, going for their secondary education. So we're doing it. Now, if only we could work on the wage gap, we'll be right there. That's a whole nother panel, I think. So I want to talk a little bit about the panel we have here. I told you a little bit about my path, and it's not normal. And I do still have my private practice that I juggle along with the show. I do have a family. And it can be a lot, but you know, there's nothing that women cannot do. We are absolutely resilient. And there's nothing better than having a support network of other women. So if you don't have that, I hope that some of our panelists today will share their information before this is over and, you know, provide you some insight. I'm more than happy to sit and talk. Normally I'd offer sit down with a cup of coffee, but the way things are now, we could do a Zoom chat. But if you are looking for a mentor or somebody to kind of guide you through this, I encourage you to find one. I'm someone who I came from a family. I was actually the first to graduate college. And I'm definitely the first to go on to get a graduate education. So I didn't necessarily have all the resources, But I was able to find them in high school through counselors, and especially at St. Mary's. I can't speak enough about what St. Mary's means to me and where I am today. I think last year somebody interviewed me for the Alumni magazine, and it's then that I really sat down and thought about it. It was the seminar learning, that critical thinking, that having to participate and being challenged, that I was really uncomfortable with in the beginning. I was 17 years old when I went into college. But you realize that's what life is going to be. And you need to be able to listen to people. You need to be able to respond to them. And you need to have that critical thinking and possibly be open to changing the way that you think. Because I know that if a lot of my classmates from my freshman year who sat down and had a conversation with me now, they'd be like, you are very different. Your ideologies are different. What your goals are different. And, we are always evolving. And I think St. Mary's seminar helped us do that so much. The liberal arts program is amazing. Oh my gosh, all of the, the Lasallian mentality, social action, enter to learn, leave to serve. Myself and Evonne, we were part of the social action leadership team. I can't encourage you enough to, when you're back in school or even now, what you can do remotely, volunteer, network, do it all. Take advantage of all of those opportunities that St. Mary's gives you, because it was the networking and the volunteering that really ignited a fire in me as to what I wanted to do later in life. So I'm forever grateful for those opportunities. I'm sure other people on the panel are. As a politics major, I had amazing professors. Barbara McGraw was one of my favorite. Patricia Longo, who's still there. Oh my gosh, she challenged me every day. And it's made a difference in who I am today. So, welcome those opportunities. Welcome being uncomfortable. Welcome being challenged, right? Because if you look at 2021 and the United States and the world right now, that's what's happening to us. So I think if we just kind of sit in a place where we're open to hearing other people, listening to the other side, and being challenged and being uncomfortable and volunteering our time, the best thing you can do when you are feeling down and depressed is, studies show, volunteer. And there are so many opportunities to do that even right now remotely. But when you do that, studies show it actually does change your mood. It changes your perspective. So I know that's what we did, myself and Evonne, a lot in college, and it always made me feel grateful. It always changed my perspective, and it made me able to relate better to other people and their struggles. So that's what I can say about my experience at St. Mary's. I'm a huge fan of the teaching of the professors. And so I just want to thank, the liberal arts program and St. Mary's for those opportunities. And now I want to introduce some people on our panel today, because like I said, everybody has a different path. Mine was, law school. But not and some may go to law school and not end up practicing. So today we have Stephanie Green with us. And Stephanie was actually valedictorian in 2001. That's amazing. So while at St. Mary's, she helped found the College Women's Resource and Research Center. So thank you for that. I didn't know that. I just recently learned that. Stephanie is currently Chief Strategist of Partnerships at Women's Foundation California, where she leads the foundation's efforts to engage communities of support to advance racial, economic, and gender justice. Amazing. So thanks for being with us, Stephanie. Next, we have Evonne Silva. And as I mentioned, I'm a little biased with this one. We went to college together back in 2004, and we were roommates. So Evonne is now Senior Program Director of Criminal Justice at Code for America, where she leads a team that develops technology and leverages human-centered design to help transform the way government delivers services to those impacted by the criminal legal system. And she could tell you more about this, but this is some innovative technology right now dealing specifically with criminal justice, which is very interesting and very much needed. Evonne also did go to law school, and she's somebody who's not a practicing lawyer right now, but has this amazing career in a different path. So that's exciting work, exciting opportunities. And then finally, we have Sarah Woolston. I think you are a recent, 2014, so you probably don't even feel like that's recent. Sarah is an associate attorney with Matheny, Sayers, Linkert, and Jamie, if I got that right. She obtained her JD from UC Davis School of Law in 2017. And she's practicing in the areas of civil litigation with an emphasis on public entity defense and employment law defense. So you are a practicing attorney. So we have some great panelists here. And at the end, we will be taking questions. So if any of you guys have any questions for them, would love to be able to give them an opportunity to answer some of your questions. Stephanie, I want to start with you. Tell us how St. Mary's prepared you for where you are today in your career.
Sure. Thanks, Fatima. Well, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the Lassallean tradition that really St. Mary's is rooted in, and the seminar program, and really thinking critically and thinking how you can take those things that you're learning in the classroom out into the world. That is really the social justice aspect of the college is really what drew me to it to begin with. And then once I was at St. Mary's, I found the Women's and Gender Studies program. I was an English major, but actually Patrizia Longo was teaching intro, and really found a home in that program, where it was really a direct way to find the ways that you could engage in community about the things that you were learning. And so that really sort of set me on my path of finding ways that I could directly engage. And like you said, it was sort of a longer path where I thought I was going to go to law school, didn't go to law school, went to graduate school.
That's what I was wondering, if you did go to law school or not. Okay.
Well, no, when I was the summer in between my junior and senior year, I was a congressional intern. I went through a program with American University. So I was a congressional intern for Juanita Millinder McDonald, who was a representative from Compton, Carson, Watson, Long Beach. And I thought, this will tell me if I want to go to law school. And really what I saw was there was so many other ways to engage and to move policy in that way. And so, I always liked learning, right? That's one of the things that really was fostered at St. Mary's, is really, just engaging with, source materials and having deep conversations with your classmates and your professors. And that's what I thought I was going to do, in law school, and then take that out into the world. And I realized that there's so many other ways to do that. The other thing I realized is that you have to fund social justice work. So we did that at the Women's Resource and Research Center. We did need to find funding for it. So we actually raised $85,000 while we were students to fund that center. And so I ended up sort of, while there were lots of different ways of going around, a stint in graduate school in Texas, which was fantastic and a whole other conversation. But I kept realizing that fundraising is not necessarily something that most people say, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to be a fundraiser. That sounds like a great idea. But that does need to fund the work. And by working in smaller organizations, that really allowed me to also participate in the programmatic work while doing that. And because I could understand the programs, I was more successful in my job.
Why do you love it? Why do you love funding?
I love fundraising. It's the same, fundraising is really organizing. So the same things that you're doing to organize around policy, you're doing in fundraising. It's really making connections between individuals. I actually made a connection with a dad I'm on vacation with my family right now, and I made a connection with a dad at a playground because he's a stay-at-home dad. My husband's a stay-at-home dad. We started chatting, and turns out we all work in philanthropy, and so it's really just making those connections, and also doing the sort of back end of the work so that other people can really succeed in doing that. And so that's the part that I really, really love. And my current organization, the Women's Foundation California, is really where I feel like I have found my home. After I graduated in 2001, so this is 20 years of a life experience. But I have, I started in 2016. In the summer of 2016, and I knew that I had found my place. So it took 16 years of doing things that all led me there and gave me skills and experience connections.
So you didn't graduate and then there was like this path to where you are and somebody just handed it to you? It's like,
not at all. There was
this is what you do. Check this, check this, check this.
Not at all. There was a couple of unpaid internships, so I'm super excited that the College of Liberal Arts is paying folks to participate in internships. And, you know, I thought I was going to be a lawyer, decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. I, you know, did some fundraising, said, you know, oh, now I really want to do, I thought I was going to be a women's studies professor. So went to Texas to do that. Realized, again, here I found myself fundraising, organizing, and doing policy again. Same things I did at St. Mary's. And so, you know, came out of that graduate program. And, you know, now I had a master's degree in women's and gender studies, and I can say that I'm using that degree every day. I'm using the things that I learned at St. Mary's every day. But it took, you know, 16 years before I got there.
And would you say St. Mary's played a role in planting that seed of that passion for, you know, gender studies and all of that?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I will say we spent the last week before our graduation on a hunger strike on the campus lawn. So, you know, it really is a wonderful place to find what you're passionate about and really be able to advocate for change, to find your community that you need to do that, and to test those waters and gain those skills. You know, it was really that sort of gave me that opportunity to do that. And, you know, having the support of my professors who, you know, after going to the University of Texas at Austin, which is the second largest university in the country, sometimes it's the first, sometimes it's the second, depending on how big Michigan is. But there are dorms there that have their own zip code. So
not quite St. Mary's.
Not quite St. Mary's. And so I got there and, you know, one, I was astounded that there were 7 libraries. But, you know, it's a very different experience going to a really large public university like that. You know, a graduate degree is really the seminar program is a graduate program. Like that is what prepares you for graduate school. And so I was prepared academically, but also had the opportunity to really deepen relationships with my professors. And so, you know, who can give you introductions and really show you sort of what is possible even beyond the academia that they've chosen to do as their profession.
Very cool. What has been the highlight of your career so far, would you say?
Well, I think the highlight of my career so far is that you know, a year ago, the world turned upside down. We didn't know what was going on. And as a fundraiser, you're always very conservative when we were doing our budgeting process and all these things. But we also knew that all of our, so the Women's Foundation California invests in small grassroots organization led for and by women and non-binary folks of color. And we knew that they were going to be the hardest hit when COVID hit. And so we started, you know, our public foundation. So we raise all of the dollars that we grant out each year. And we also run the Women's Policy Institute to train organizers to move policy at the state and local level. So we have connections in philanthropy and in policy and, you know, in grassroots organizing. And so we knew that they were going to be really hard hit. So we started moving money as fast as we possibly could, as much as we possibly could. At the same time, we had a relationship with the Office of the Governor and the Office of the First Partner. Because of that previous work. And so because of that, our ability to show that we could do the work and we could move money without any strings attached, and we knew the folks that needed it most, we were able to partner with the Office of the Governor and move we have a goal of $50 million to create a feminist economic recovery plan for the state. And part of that was moving $5 million into domestic violence shelters who were really hard hit because staying at home was not the safest option for most folks.
Wow, that's incredible. Kudos to you. That's amazing work, especially in these times. We know that domestic violence numbers are the highest during these times right now while people are home. So really making an actual change, Stephanie, which is awesome. I think that you had said something that hit the nail on the head. St. Mary's advocates, helps you, makes you want to advocate for change. And it feels like through the seminar style and all of that, it starts with almost advocating for change in yourself, right? Like challenging yourself the way you think, getting outside your comfort zone, And a lot of work that you do, I admire that because it takes a lot of getting out of your comfort zone. You have to network. You have to be able to, just be bold and confident in when you're doing fundraising. So I'm sure you would advise a lot of the young people at St. Mary's right now, get involved in the networking, not just the volunteering and participating in the community, but the networking. Learn to engage with other people, speak confidently with them, get out of your comfort zone, because later in life you could be doing something like you're doing and making a huge difference for women. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Thing that seminar taught me is that you don't know everything, that other people have a lot to add to the conversation.
I sure thought I did.
But yes, having the ability to speak with and connect with people, but also to be humble and to hear other people's stories and other people's thoughts is really key to success too, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you. Evonne, hello.
Hello.
So Evonne, tell us a little bit about how St. Mary's prepared you for the path that you have today, the career you have today.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. Also just so impressed, Stephanie, with your path and the work that you've done, especially over the last year, that COVID relief. It's so critical to folks, I mean, in so many ways. I think the thing that really helped to shape the way that my career turned out was St. Mary's challenging me to learn from the community by being in the community. And this comes up often in my work. And Brian Stevenson actually talks a lot about this, about how proximity to the issues can equip you to be the best, have the best solutions. And how do we, if you're further from the issues that you're grappling with, how do you start to gain more proximity to people and communities to have a fuller understanding and to listen more? And I think especially through SALT and other programs and opportunities at St. Mary's, volunteering at different organizations across the Bay Area, doing all sorts of things. Even if it was just for a day or a couple of days, just opened my lens even more to the world, to the need, to people, and to different perspectives. And I think that has really shaped my career and the way that I look at the law, the way that I look at my work. So it's sort of it's actually the stuff outside the classroom, even though we had a lot of fun and would challenge inside, it's actually the stuff outside the classroom that really shaped me.
I remember you and I volunteering at the Women's Economic Agenda Project in Oakland, downtown. Yep. And we would go from, our little bubble in Moraga, and we get on the BART, and we go to end up getting off in the middle of downtown Oakland, all hours of the day, and going to volunteer at this nonprofit, which was, and they did amazing work. But I recall several times you and I feeling like out of our comfort zone, but we were loving what we were doing and it was needed. And we would, we were going to do that. And you're right. It taught us a lot about, and we were outside the classroom. It taught us so much about the kind of work that we want to do and the kind of communities we want to go into. But yeah, it takes stepping out of your comfort zone. Absolutely. It's not like we just were, completely comfortable every time we were volunteering at different places. I mean, we even, I remember we were helping homeless people fill out legal paperwork, or immigrants. And, a lot of those situations are, you're young and you just don't know what's happening around you, or maybe some of the people you're encountering. But it's things that you've got to get out and do now, because it's going to just better equip you for later on, as cheesy as that sounds. But that's what St. Mary's offers, with all of those different opportunities to go out and engage with the community. Mm-hmm. So now, and tell us about, because you went to law school, and then what happened?
Yeah. So I actually, I graduated and was planning to take a year off. And in that year, worked at a small firm in San Francisco, and then found myself at doing a fellowship at Georgetown, a criminal defense fellowship, which is a great program where recent grads serve as investigators on criminal defense teams, where second and third year law students are paired with attorneys, and they serve as the criminal defense attorneys. So you have this sort of tripod of a team doing criminal defense in DC. And I got to do that investigative work. And I went into that thinking I was going to go to law school. I had a plan. I had applied. I had paid the money. It was happening. I found myself in DC doing investigation on the streets, criminal defense investigation, and talk about my lens and world being opened even more, having come from a really small town in the Central Valley. And I saw all of us investigators fit a certain archetype around, even though we came from very different walks of life, of like, let's go to law school. It's a thing you got to do. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And I actually, in that moment, in talking with the attorney that I was working with, was sharing that I was hesitant. There was some trepidation that I had. It felt like a big commitment. And he said very simply, kind of casually, sort of like, you don't have to go. Law school will always be there. Find your way in the world and see if it actually is the right move for you. And that to me was liberation. I was like, oh shit, yes. Sorry, can't cuss, but yes, it's like, that is, permission to really start to see the world. And so I deferred my applications and ended up finding my way back in California, working as a paralegal at Berkeley's death penalty clinic, then found my way to the ACLU of Northern California, first as an assistant, then moving to doing policy work across a number of issues, mostly focused in criminal justice, but with particular angles around the school to prison pipeline, broad racial justice, police practices, the death penalty, and then continued voting rights work. Also worked at an organization doing food security work in California. And by that point, I had gained an expertise in California politics, county politics, that allowed me to transfer sort of subject matter of school to prison pipeline and racial justice to food security. There is overlap because humans are holistic, but really to transfer across. And then I went to law school because at that point I had gained a perspective that going to law school is going to equip me with the tools and the network to be at the tables that I wanted to be at to make the change that I wanted to use my skills for. So then I went to law school 6.5 years later, and I went to UCLA, which was a great program, but I had to find my way because it was like most people have to find their way in graduate programs. It's sort of, unless you've had a guide, whether through family or other resources, it can all be pretty startling. But it's a great program, and I was focused on public interest law. So I was in the public interest program at UCLA, and then also focused on critical race studies. So had these sort of built-in communities and networks that have shaped my thinking and the way I think about the law and think about being a lawyer. So that's how I found my way to law school. Do you want me to keep going to today, or?
Well, tell us a little bit about, it's exciting. And I remember I could just speak on a personal level. When we were in college together, we had the same goal. Not just the same last name, not just, were we roommates, but we also had the same goals. And you were probably more type A than I was. And this is my plan. This is my plan. And both of us would just be, frazzled when things would go off course. And it was just funny to finally see that we actually both took a year off. So that first year before I even went into law school, I took a year off because I did feel overwhelmed. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't feel prepared for it. And I knew also I was going to go to the East Coast for law school. And I don't know, when you graduate, you're like 20. I think I just turned 21. So I didn't know if I was ready for that huge change either, moving across the country. So I took that year off, which I do recommend if you're not quite ready. It's not the end of the world. And Evonne took many years off and still went back to law school. But I can say from watching you through it. And from just the way you excelled in law school, there were moments I told myself, maybe I should have waited. You know, I did take that year, but then I rushed, you know, through law school, and there were curveballs thrown at me coming out of law school. Life was just crazy. I remember it was like 2008, 2009, Lehman Brothers. And then you couldn't, I remember trying to work for free. Like, please, I'll work for free. I just need something on my resume. And people are like, nope, sorry, we have too many volunteers. It was those days. Remember, it was a really hard time for everyone. But you know, so our plan is, your destiny is, you know, the different paths you take. But I just saw you excel. And then I remember being at your law school graduation and you getting, you know, the fellowship that you did after that. And it was just like, wow, the secret sometimes for a lot of us is go to law school later, or, you know, work in the meantime, find your passion, then go into law school. And I had a lot of people I went to law school with who they were nurses before. They did real estate before. And so they, in law school, decided they wanted to do, you know, health law coming out. And they were just so much more driven, I'd say, than the rest of us who were kind of like finding our way. And so I do always encourage, if you don't know, don't freak out. Just take the time, work, find the passion, find the connections, find the resources, find that person who's going to guide you and remind you it's all going to be okay. Just keep working hard. You know, don't get lazy, keep the hustle, but you'll find your path. And everybody has a different time. So we both ended up, you know, eventually attorneys on two total different paths. And now as I practice, you know, criminal justice in the courtroom, you're doing it with technology on the outside. So tell us about this program, because I think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I work at Code for America, which is a nonprofit that has this crazy belief that government can and should work for the people, and that we can leverage technology and human-centered design to improve the way that government delivers services. And so I oversee the criminal justice portfolio, and what we're aiming to do is to actually shrink the reach of the criminal justice system by transforming how government delivers services to those impacted by the system. And one of our key initiatives is called Clear My Record, which is looking and doing work across the country to advance automatic record clearance. So essentially thinking about the current process, the kind of status quo for if you get swept into the criminal justice system, one encounter with a law enforcement officer can start a criminal record, and those criminal records follow you throughout your life, leaving 1 in 3 people with a criminal record, 70 to 100 million people in the country. And that is a very stark example of the breadth of and the reach, the tentacles of the criminal justice system. And so it's a problem because those records are barriers to jobs, employment, education, being able to serve on your PTA, on your the HOA board in some locations. Yeah. And so in very small and large ways, criminal records are barriers for folks. The current
could be a barrier to getting an apartment alone.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, being the coach in Little League, I experience it all the time. And it could be the smallest misdemeanor or petty misdemeanor. But what a lot of people don't understand is if you do not petition, which is filling out paperwork, so you got to know how to fill it out, then you got to go to court and you got to file it, which in COVID times, people have no idea how to get that done, right? Even I as an attorney was like, where are we filing everything right now? Yep. But then you have to get a hearing date and then you have to go in front of a judge. I mean, it's just, it takes so much to actually take something off your record that may not have even been that serious to begin with. This would help save people that time and give them a resource and save them money, because you have to pay a lawyer really to get it done if you can't take off of work and do all of those things. I mean, you know, all that takes time and money. Yeah. Also, what people don't go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it also is even arrests because employers can't balance when they see a criminal record. They don't actually know what to do with what's on your criminal record, and so on your background. And so assumptions and biases show up in that process. So it's not even that you've been through the process, but even a non-conviction, an arrest, or a dismissal, or an acquittal. You've been through the process and or found to be innocent, or the case was dismissed against you. And so, yeah, Fatima, it's exactly right. I mean, the process itself is incredibly burdensome. But when we think about the government and the service that government can provide, especially given the system and the history of the criminal justice system, why don't we provide criminal record relief automatically? And Code for America and my team helped to build some technology to show that it was possible. And we are doing this in states across the country, both helping policymakers draft legislation to make record clearance automatic, and then helping to do the actual implementation, the operation, the machinery of how government works to make sure that those records are actually cleared automatically, and so that folks know about it. So it's really exciting to see. I get asked often, do I miss being a lawyer? And the answer is, I'm a lawyer every day. I'm in conversations. I am formulating questions to problems before me to try and find answers. There is ways in which negotiations and trying to connect dots and understand systems to make systemic changes is the way that I tend to define it. And so it's really exciting to be able to have the opportunity to practice in this way, which is very non-traditional, but it's really fun.
Right. And a lot of people, I think a lot of students need to hear that being a lawyer isn't just one role. You imagine a lawyer and it's this person who's in the courtroom every day and they're just like glamorous. And whenever people are like, oh, you're a lawyer. Yes, I am in the courtroom a lot, but I am not glamorous. I normally show up with coffee stains because I'm driving from courtroom to courtroom, or I'm running because, somebody needs me in this one. It's not what you think. And there are different roles in being a lawyer. And so this goes to our last panelist, Sarah. You could speak a little more about, the kind of law that you do, but it's not necessarily somebody who's in the courtroom every single day. But yet you are practicing lawyer, and there's different dynamics to what you do. So tell us a little more about your journey.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah. I graduated in 2014, and I actually went straight to law school from St. Mary's. I took my LSATs in the fall, and I just was one of those people where I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm not going to do it later. And I really enjoyed my experience at St. Mary's, and actually every job professionally that I've gotten in the legal field, there's a tie to St. Mary's. When I was a senior, I gave a tour to a father and his daughter, and the father ended up being Justice Louis Morrow, and that was my first externship. And his daughter went to St. Mary's, and then my current boss, Matthew Jaime, went to St. Mary's as well. But I practice in civil litigation, and, so I am in the courtroom. I've been to trial, but not nearly as much as probably you, Fatima. And I mostly find myself in negotiation, mediation, that sort of thing. I work for nonprofits. I work for school districts primarily, and a little bit of Costco, which is super fun because they get some high profile stuff, but they're a great company. I almost feel like they're a nonprofit in my mind because of how well they treat their employees. So
good to know.
What's that?
I said, good to know.
Yes. Yeah. They treat their employees really well. And so, I'm just really impressed to listen to the other panelists. I feel like, what am I doing to help society to that level? You know what I mean? But it's interesting how the more I progress in my career, the more I think about where I came from with St. Mary's, and I went to Christian Brothers in Sacramento. So that LaSallian tradition has been with me for, that whole time. But, when I was at St. Mary's, I decided on law school in large part because of Jan term. And because I got the worst time to sign up for classes, because I wanted to take Harry Potter or like the history of the bicycle or something just super easy. I wanted to coast and, you know, go to the roundup or whatever with my friends. Like that was what I thought was going to be, you know, like for me. And then I ended up falling in love with this Model UN class, and there was a mock trial and I was just really into it. And I thought, oh, like, you know, maybe this is something for me. And I was a volunteer teacher as well at St. Mary's. And now part of what my pro bono service is to give back is I volunteer teach about boundaries and social media and, you know, these other huge topics that are impacting our students. So, so it's fun, and civil litigation is, you know, stressful and fast paced, but I'm so happy that it's my career.
And it sounds like for you, which is amazing. I always encourage people all the time when you're trying to go for a job or making those connections, always Google the person, see if there's any connection to St. Mary's, because especially in the Bay Area, there are so many St. Mary's alumni who, not just the Bay Area, I mean, I've encountered them across the country in different scenarios, but you always want to use that. It's just this gale force kind of, you know, community that everybody who's gone. It's not like, you know, a lot of places where we've gone on to graduate school or, you know, other colleges after that, these huge colleges where nobody really remembers you or knows your name. Because you come from St. Mary's, everybody knows, oh, you're a small knit community. Everybody was very close. You know, people often say, hey, are these professors still there? I can't believe some of my favorites are still there, because it feels like that was so long ago, but it's amazing. And it shows they love what they're doing. And that showed back then when they were teaching us and they were challenging us. And so I can't thank them enough, but it sounds like also St. Mary's has given you those resources to where you are today, which is exciting because we know that you're going to give those resources to somebody else later on. That's just how it works, right? And that's why a lot of us on this panel, you know, we have a special women's panel because, you know, there's other women out there. There's young women in college right now who they do need some direction, or they have questions as to whether you know, this is the route to take or not. And obviously nobody has a crystal ball here. None of us do. If I'm sure if any of us saw where we were today back then, we'd kind of laugh and go, no way. But, or, you know, if you think about all the failures you had in the meantime, all the, you know, I'd say redirection and U-turns of the path. I mean, things that you just don't anticipate that are automatically going to happen. But that's why you turn around and then you say, how can I help you now? I know I always offer myself as a resource to St. Mary's students. We try to go to these alumni events because I remember sitting there first year at these, you know, where you go and it's like all the alumni come and you go to your table and where you're going to sit. And I always went and sat at the law table because I knew then. But it was so overwhelming then. And it did sound like everybody had this clear path. It felt like, well, I just need to do A, B, and C, and then I'll end up there. And I guess we're all here to tell you that's not necessarily how it works. Some of it is chance. Some of it is opportunity. It's connections. It's, you know, I think the one thing we can say that works is get yourself out of the house, get yourself out of my dad calling with the baby to Zoom. Get yourself in these scenarios where you're forced to meet other people. You're forced to have conversations and you know, engage with your community and make these connections, because later it's going to pay off. You know, I was talking earlier about how I had no idea what I was going to do when after I graduated law school, because nobody would even take, you know, volunteer work. And I ended up working back then on the Kamala Harris campaign when she was campaigning for Attorney General. And now look where she is today. It's amazing. And I actually passed up a job opportunity years ago because when she was Attorney General, because it was like paying nothing in Sacramento. And I was like, I can't do that. And now I'm like, gosh, I regret that. But, you know, it's just all about, and that was a time in my life that I look back and I'm like, wow, that was a really dark place. Like I couldn't get a job, and, you know, things were really difficult. I was working for free. I was living back home and I was like 26. Like, who wants to do that? But, you know, and now I look back and I'm like, wow, I had the opportunity to do that. Now she's the vice president in the United States. And I can say I worked on her campaign. I've met her. I made calls for her, all of those things. So, you know, it's just, you have to take life as it comes and stay open and take opportunities where you can. And so with that, I think, you know, I just encourage all of you guys to do that, to make connections, reach out to us, reach out to other alumni, and just don't get discouraged in the meantime when things don't seem to work out, because it always means another path is happening, right? For me, if I look back, if things happened a certain way, I wouldn't have this amazing opportunity that I have now to, one, have my own small firm, but also be on television, meeting people across the country who need, you know, assistance and advocating for their loved ones who they feel are wrongfully accused. That's an amazing opportunity. So, and it all came out of just probably a lot of derailed, dark moments. So you just never know. So if you guys have any questions, I don't know, there's people in the chat. No, does anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? Anything like that? Anybody wondering whether they're taking the right route? Are there seniors in here? Anybody going to law school?
Fatima,
Want some law school advice?
Conversation about that wage gap though with all these seniors.
Yeah, yeah. You demand your worth. That needs to be. It's amazing that we are like majority now. We are equal in the workforce, and yet the higher in education you go, actually, the less you make compared to the man. So to the man, I say, sorry guys, but you know, it's sad, and we have to demand our worth. And there are many moments I'm just so grateful for opportunities, and we're just so happy to be in the room and at the table that we don't do it. So yeah, do it for us, everyone.
Don't have imposter syndrome.
Exactly. How did your major prepare you for law school? I mean, for me, as a politics major, I mean, there was all those conversations, critical thinking, learning the cases, that basically was stuff you talked about in law school. But I do tell people now, and I don't know if anybody's going to be upset by this, but I do tell people I wish I was a business major instead, because you can go to law school with any major. You go to law school with the communications major. They start from scratch. They start from A. You're going to learn everything, you know, all over again. So if you're not a politics major, it's okay. And now I run a business, and I'm like, how do I run a business? Like, I should have been a business major. Would anybody else say, Evonne, you were a politics major too, so obviously, anybody else have a different major or how that played a role for them? No?
I was a politics major. But I can tell you that I studied for the LSAT with the girl I went to St. Mary's with, who was a dance major, and ended up going to law school and doing very well. And now she's a deputy district attorney. So you could literally be any major. And I think that was my biggest takeaway from the professors at St. Mary's, is them teaching me, like, there's no one that's going to tell you, like, you know, there's no like ceiling to what you can do. If you want to go to law school, take an LSAT prep class, try it out. If you hate it, you hate it. And it doesn't have to be super linear. It can be very fluid with what you want to do. And for me, I just kept having this imposter syndrome of like, when are people, like, even now I'm like, are people going to tell me like, you're not really a lawyer? Like, quit the act?
I still have that too. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it never ends. But the truth is, for any of the students on this call, it's something that's very achievable. And it's a broad field that you can do a lot in.
Right. Absolutely. And the classes that, you know, are offered when you have those majors and the opportunities, I remember you have to do, I think, being a politics major, you have to do the community service. You have to do all that advocacy work. So it helps prepare you for that. But I was also minor in performing arts. So, you know, I think it does prepare me. I mean, when a trial is performance in a lot of ways. And now I have a TV show, and that's kind of performance, even though it's true crime. So, you know, just follow your passion, follow what you love, take classes that you love. That's the best advice I can give. Don't take classes you hate. Don't end up working in a career that you hate. There are so many opportunities out there. And it's not just these traditional roles all the time, you know, and we are an example of that. So it looks like people would like, if the panelists could put their information in on the chat, some people would like contact information for later.
So I wonder if I could ask a question or point to a question that I think Dean Hughes had put into the chat, which I think is a fabulous question, in terms of, is there anything you wish you had done as a student at St. Mary's to help you explore or prepare for your future path? I just think it's a great question. Sorry to interrupt the flow, but I love what she's asking. And as the director of the Career Center, I'm particularly interested in what you all might have to say to that.
I'm going to offer that so that I mean, for me, not taking advantage of all the different opportunities, I'd say all the different volunteer opportunities, all the different networking events, all the panels. I mean, I did a lot, but I'm sure there were many times I was just, you know, consumed with my grades or a paper or getting work done that, you know, real life is happening outside of that. All those things are important, but real life is happening around that. And, you know, kind of like Sarah said, she gave a tour, you know, her job was giving a tour, and she met somebody who eventually she worked for through that. If you don't get out and you don't take those opportunities, you miss out on what the world is going to offer you later on. And, you know, you're not just a number, you're not just a GPA, you're not just this resume, you're far more than that. But that's all you will be if you just feel like those are the only things you need to focus on. So I can only say, you know, I should have done more. I don't know if anybody else has any other regrets. I mean, I wish I could have afforded Jan term more traveling. We did 1 year. It was amazing. We did Spain. We were seniors, but I didn't come from a background where we had those resources or that income. So that opportunity alone was just, I'd say, changed my life. And I know, Evonne, you did Italy. So for people, for like little California girls, you know, just from the Bay and the Central Valley, to get out and have those opportunities is amazing. Take advantage of Jan term for sure.
I would also say, I mean, you touched on this too, but, you know, getting off campus too, whether it's a volunteership, or you mentioned working on the Harris campaign, and I worked on the 2004 presidential campaigns. I wish I would have done campaign work more in college. They're great summer jobs. And right now, I mean, it's going to be organizing, creating policy has completely had to be revamped during the pandemic. And so now is the time, you know, and it's in many ways opened up the ways that we can engage in public policy creation and implementation and campaigning. So I think engaging in that way, it's a, if you want to talk about ways to connect, just like you said, you know, working on the Harris campaign, a campaign is really, and it doesn't have to be a big presidential campaign, but those local campaigns can also be really great door openers.
I had nothing else to do. I was like, wait, make calls to random people who hang up on you when you say, are you going to vote for Kamala Harris? And they, sure. But it was, you know, it wasn't me sitting in my room making those calls. It was me going out and meeting other folks in Oakland who had a passion for, you know, what she was going to do for California. And we would all get together and we'd sit in this big room. And I don't know if anybody knew, I was just desperate to work and find value because I couldn't even find a job after graduating law school. I mean, nobody knows those moments, that defeat, that dark place where you're just so desperate, but you're still working through it, right? And to this day, people are like, I remember you from that campaign. I mean, very small when you actually work in social advocacy and, you know, all of that public interest work. But like, everybody's like, I remember you then. And you were just like so awesome and fired up. And I'm thinking, I had nothing else to do. I was living at my mom and dad's house, like, you know, trying to find value. And life, you know, when you look back at those moments, you're like, I'm glad I took advantage of that opportunity, getting out of that comfort zone. So yeah, I'd say just doing more of that.
I also worked a campaign when it was, I mean, 2001 tech bubble, 2008. Now we're in
love getting hung up on. Yeah, those are fun. Do you know, because of that, whenever people call and through Biden and all that, the calls are like nonstop. I just can't hang up on people because I feel like it could have been me on the other line. Someone's like, I'm so sorry. I have to go. But yeah, you know, you never know where you'll end up. Always be kind to those people.
The other thing that I would probably
What was that,
wish, the other thing that I probably wish I would have taken more advantage of, and I don't know if it existed in 2004, is mentorship opportunities and ways for St. Mary's to actually prompt me to create a network. Because through those networks, then having gain opportunities to gain leadership skills or even just connections to other places. And I ended up finding them here and there. And Patricia Longo is, I will forever remember her influence and impact on my life, and how, and finding more of those, both sponsors and mentors, I think is something I wish I did more of and would encourage folks to do.
Absolutely. That's actually true. I don't recall having a mentor throughout those years, somebody that, you know, walked me through things. I was grateful for obviously the Career Resource Center and all of that and your counselors. But yeah, I think we were just kind of figuring it out on our own, especially for those of us who don't have any kind of family connections or resources in our lives where, you know, our family could say, hey, call so-and-so, I know him, you know. I remember even getting into St. Mary's, my parents couldn't even, you know, look at my essay. I didn't have anybody to look at my essay to get into St. Mary's. I had to ask somebody in my high school, a counselor, can you review it? Because, you know, my parents are, you know, Latino family, and they were like, we don't know how any of this stuff works, you know. So it's just using the resources. And I'd say that that's something I absolutely did at St. Mary's, because I know that for somebody like me, that's the only way I can get somewhere in life oftentimes, other than your own work and hustle, right?
So thank you for that, because we do seriously think about how we can connect you to people who are doing what you want to do, or helping you network so that you can get to where you want to go. And so I really appreciate your comments about paying attention to students who may not have those connections and that network that's immediately available to them. So I appreciate your talking about that, because that's what we really try to do, is make sure that you all can get connected to the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you, Fatima, say, jokingly, I hope, as Dean of the School of Liberal Arts, that you wish you'd been a business major. But part of what I heard there was that there were certain kinds of technical skills and know-how that you didn't know you would need later in your life that could have helped provide it. I actually really encourage liberal arts majors to take some classes, do a minor, take a course in data analysis, take a course in marketing or finance, or, you know, something that is going to give you a different set of skills. Our business majors get a pretty good liberal arts education even at St. Mary's, but you know, I say major in the thing you love, and pick up the other skills through a course, a Jan term, an internship, a summer program, you know.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I did say jokingly, because now I have a business and I'm constantly reaching out to friends and finding out, how do these things work? But if I had done that, then I wouldn't have met these life-changing professors. And that is, and Evonne speaks, we could have a whole hour probably on Patricia Longo, or Barbara McGraw was another one of my favorites. And so many more that made an impact that I wouldn't have met those professors who did end up changing my life. But I have to agree with you on that, because of, I know what I want to do, this kind of type A personality that a lot of us who go to law school have. We tend to get this tunnel vision and only take classes that really fit in that, right? Or something that's going to further that. And I think that's why I expressed you could really have any major going into law school. But I think what I'm trying to say is definitely take the other classes, expand your thinking, because law just isn't criminal law or civil law. I mean, there is health law. There are so many different areas of law that, you know, I mean, obviously you have, you know, patent law. And so if you're into sciences or anything like that, try those courses as well. Mingle what you love, you know, bring it together, and you'll probably do even better because you're just so focused on that, and you create this niche. I know for me, I just really stuck with the politics route of classes. I think, you know, you have to have a math major, and Evonne might remember this because I'm terrible at math, like so bad. And to this day, I'm always like, you don't really need it. But of course I do. But I took the art and practice of math. So thank you, St. Mary's, for providing a class that was not actually math. It was learning codes and like, I don't even remember, but it was
law school.
Did you do that too? I was like, I need to pass math, and I cannot pass math if I do like a normal math class. I'm so challenged. But that's, you know, all jokes aside, absolutely try other courses, get out of your, you know, what your normal course load would be, and see what other areas to expand those horizons for sure.
Okay. Well, Dana just put in the comments, we're offering a course for liberal arts majors on data science that fulfills the math requirement this fall.
So I would have taken that. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't you wish you'd had that?
Yeah. Lawyers, we're known for our English grades, not our math grades. Anyway, I think that's it unless anybody has questions. I could say for me, as far as my contact information, I can leave it here. But also you can find me my website, silvalawsf.com. And my email's on there. You guys can feel free to email me there. Fatima Silva on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm doing like a little plug. Evonne, I think I saw you on Twitter. You're not Instagram still? I don't get it. It's not Facebook or Instagram. But yeah, you could Google our names, I'm sure, in LinkedIn, and connect with us there. We love our St. Mary's alumni. So if that's it, I think that's it. Thank you all for being here. If you guys have any questions for us, you want to email us or connect with us, we're happy to hear from you. Don't stress, you'll get through this. You guys are awesome. You're at one of the best schools, and I can't wait to see where you all end up.